What is going on, everybody? Happy Friday. It's an amazing start to the September for RWAs, and we've got episode 299 of the latest and greatest RWA tokenization news for you. And it's a late night session recording. We got some travel plans coming up. As Kyle mentioned last week, he's heading over to Asia, so a little bit quieter here tonight, but wow, it doesn't matter. What a week in news, right, Kyle? How are you this week?
I'm doing great. I am about to be en route towards Asia, so I'm getting ready for all my travel there. But I'm excited to be here for another amazing episode, Herwig. We're rolling through 2025 here already in September.
Everybody's coming back from their summer vacations, and it's clear because we've got a lot to get into. So why don't we just get right into it? Kyle, like I said, I don't really know where to start. We're picking these in no specific order about what the biggest headlines were this week, but I'm going to start it out with Galaxy. This is a multi-billion-dollar crypto firm that is now public and has the market's eye, if you will, after going public this year, actually. But now, not only are they a multi-billion-dollar public company for crypto, but they're also on-chain, Kyle. So they have announced that through Opening Bell, which is powered by Superstate, they have natively tokenized their shares on Solana. And so keyword there, natively, right? Directly with Superstate. Not the first time. It's actually happened through Securities with Exodus, but this is the first time with a multi-billion-dollar company. And definitely people are going to take notice. I'm really excited to see what is in store here through the Superstate platform. And in fact, of course, that address is public. You can go check it out. Interestingly enough, there's about 100 million, according to this, already tokenized, held by about 12 people, and apparently at a discount to the market cap of what it's trading on in the public markets off-chain, if that's how we're going to start saying it, Kyle.
Yeah, no, well, this is interesting because they are listed on 3 different places. I believe they originally listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Recently this year, following Circle's success on the NASDAQ, I believe they also listed on NASDAQ, and now they have their tokenized shares. And so some arguments might suggest that this is a bit redundant, right? That you're on multiple different platforms, but we have seen examples of arbitrage trading creating volume opportunities, right? If you have prices of these shares on a few different places that are slightly different, perhaps there are ambitious funds or traders that might want to get involved just in order to try to capture some of that spread. And Herwig, I think you mentioned there already might be some of those opportunities forming already.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I highly recommend people go check out this news. It is part of an onslaught of stock tokenizations that's really kicked off this summer, although we know it's been around for quite some time actively. But all eyes were, of course, also this week on Ondo's global market launch. This is a company that's been at this for years, preparing this infrastructure, sharing this vision of on-chain public markets for the world to access, and leverage all of the best of blockchain has to offer. They promised a summer rollout. People were starting to get a little nervous as we were getting close to September, and boom, they did it. They rolled it out with, I think, huge success already. I think last time I saw the leaderboard, and maybe it's already different again, they were already second in size according to volume. And that's not surprising given that it's over 100 stocks, and they claim to be having, both natively on-chain issuance, but also the supposed backing of the traditional liquid markets, right? Having some kind of connection to that. I don't know how they do that in potentially real time. Again, this is crazy because they're actually saying there's permissionless holding similar to stable coins of a variety of these public companies here in the United States. Again, as I've often said it here on the show, Kyle, international investors, thanks to Ondo, now have a better way to access US stocks than we do as American citizens.
Yeah, no, well, and to take it a step further, they now also can utilize these tokens within the DeFi ecosystem, which is, even incredible, right? So not only is it easier access, but now they can even do more with their shares than American citizens can.
It's the future. And hopefully we're going to catch right on up. But we talked about this on the show in the past about this is the next moment. We saw it with stable coins already. Look at how the Trump administration and really in general, people are getting behind stable coins and banks and the like. Well, stocks are next. But Kyle, I got to move on to this next article. This one is wild. We all know what's happening over in Gaza, and it looks like the Trump administration has come up with a solution that leverages, in fact, tokenization of all things. So, in fact, they plan to have some kind of digital token representing land rights or an ability to kind of redeem apartments. But their goal is to rebuild Gaza, use this kind of method to create this agreement, I guess, with all the citizens that they will have to relocate. Millions of people are part of this plan, including a resulting super cities. And I think an Elon Musk plant of some sort. I'm not kidding. This is a real article. Kyle, what are your thoughts on this?
Look, I mean, sometime today, we're potentially going to hear a big announcement from Trump. He posted this on social medias yesterday on Thursday that he had a big announcement coming for today, Friday. And so perhaps this is what is coming. Perhaps it's not. But this seems to be relatively credible that they're looking to launch a full, development plan here in the region. And are using tokens to represent these redemption factors. And just this is maybe the most ridiculous article in my 6-year career of covering the news in this industry, in some really interesting ways. But just to think that the U.S. government is using tokenization at this scale alone is just mind-boggling. And so it'll be interesting to see if this is a verified, credible review or report based off of if we hear it from the horse's mouth or not. But I've got high hopes for this being an interesting mediation play, and this would certainly thrust tokenization into the discussion globally in a way that we haven't seen.
You're not wrong about that one, Kyle. As audacious as this plan is, and say what you want about it, we can kind of laugh at it. This is proof in the pudding that tokenization is one of those better use cases for
it's more effective. Like it is. Yeah. If you're going to do this, like it actually is the most
value. Some kind of agreement people put in place with millions of people, right? This is going to be a much more effective strategy to roll out this plan if it does end up coming to market. And that's just, I think that's the point of why we've done this show, all these episodes, right, Kyle, is that whether it's putting car titles into, on the DMV on chain, or whether it's a title for actual homes and property, like we saw earlier, Bergen County, it's not just stocks and stable coins and everything we're talking about. It's the craziest use cases you can think of. Tokenization is there to be a solution. And moving on, Kyle, I think I do want to point this one out. It's not quite targeted towards tokenization, but a big deal. We're talking about a top 5 commercial bank in the country that has now finally gotten into the crypto custody game through their sub-partner, NYDIG. So I believe this was announced actually right before SAB 121. And then boom, the whole banking sector shut down when it came to anything in crypto custody and related. And, this is just a sign of the times, Kyle, where we're seeing full activity ranging from stable coins, as we've already seen it earlier announced, from many different plans from banks. And now we have US Bank moving in with Bitcoin custody. And I'm sure that's only going to expand, probably be the foundation for a lot more in the future, Kyle. So I really wanted to bring this one up, not necessarily an RWA piece of news, but I think highly relevant to the massive trend of institutions moving in to this space.
Yeah, I think you're right. And on top of everything that you described, part of the reason why I think you could have confidence that this is going to expand past just Bitcoin is, as we've talked about 1,000 times here on the show, the technical lift to allow for Bitcoin is pretty much the exact same lift to do any other token. So once you have this infrastructure set up for Bitcoin, it's very, very easy to do it for other tokenized assets. Obviously, you need to layer on the compliance, you do these types of things, but that's all off chain. In terms of the technical build out from the software perspective, it's exactly the same. And so to your point, you're really going to be able to see how that light at the end of the tunnel is now getting brighter and brighter with respect to layering in real asset tokenization, and it's not much more of a lift technically. So it really just comes down to the appetite, if you will, for these types of products. And as companies like Ondo and others are really driving that institutional adoption through just kind of bringing it all on in a tidal wave, I think that you're going to see more of that coming.
Well, I think you said that very well, Kyle, in the sense that they've done a lot of the heavy lifting here. We're talking about a large bank that is now offering these services in this environment. That's only going to expand from here. Huge stuff. Moving on to potentially another huge move we need to talk about here, Kyle, is there's a shakeup over at T0. We know, and have talked about this in the past, but there have been some vocal proponents in the T0 story for many, many years, Mark Cahotis being one of them. And another that came into the picture was Marcus Lemonis. You may have heard of him. He was known as the Prophet. He was a successful entrepreneur with Camping World, as well as now running BBBY, I think it is, which took over Bed Bath and Beyond, right? And that's, it's a story of its own, a sort of large retailer, right, that kind of went bankrupt and is now trying to make its own success comeback story. But there is an interest through all of this because of a relationship to Overstock and all this good stuff, which of course
they acquired Overstock, I think, right?
Exactly.
Or something.
I think that's right. They acquired Overstock.
Or one way or the other.
Yeah, which means they acquired one way or the other an interest into T0, right?
That's right.
So there has been a push, which is a great thing. Marcus Lemonis, huge fan of tokenization, obviously now. But the idea that I think ICE behind all of this, which I think was one of the talking points for T0 many times, right? With David Goon taking on that CEO position, was a real strong indicator of, man, this company has a huge trajectory if ICE decides to get big on tokenization, right? Well, I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon, and frankly, I don't even know if that's going to happen with T0. David Goon is out. And our good friend Alan Konevsky's back in. So he was interim CEO before, and now he is officially CEO, no interim, again. So, I know he's got big plans for the company. They obviously announced earlier a couple months ago, or even just a month ago, about their new L1, as well as some other plans that they're launching, including a token related to that. So, Kyle, I think this is great timing. I think there's been a lot of sort of eyes on why isn't there more happening from one of these OG players in the space. We all know that there's always things happening. We know it's not easy to just push RWAs forward overnight. But I do think this is going to be a positive accelerant for T0. So I hope that is indeed the case, and congrats to Alan. What are your thoughts on this, Kyle?
Hey, you come at the king, you best not miss. Shout out to Alan Konevsky for coming back into the role. We just absolutely love to see it. Alan's a good guy, and has been committed to this business in particular, like on top of the industry. He has been committed, right, to be the chief legal officer, to then be promoted into this interim role, to then, for lack of a better term, be replaced in that role. And to resume his previous position, and now to be back again in the driver's seat. It's cool to see for him. But yeah, the company really feels like it's at an important spot right now where they really haven't quite figured it out. And this feels like, a really important step for Alan to be able to take this over and now come at Ondo. I mean, considering they have now taken that institutional approach and they clearly weren't interested in the private securities space that much. They really didn't scale their listings. They didn't want to spend a ton of time brokering these smaller deals, especially with New York Stock Exchange, ICE parent company investing in them. It kind of gave this impression that they were really trying to be that kind of pre-IPO, almost Superstate like business, and weren't quite able to fit into those types of businesses. And now you have Superstate and Ondo that are both firing on all cylinders, to kind of taking some of that market share that they, I think, originally felt very comfortable sitting in. So it's a very important time for this business to maintain the fact that they probably, honestly, even today, are still the best known brand in this industry. I hear from people all the time that I talk to that don't know much about the industry, and most people have heard of T0 in one way or another, or ask about it, or ask what's going on with it. I still think they have really strong branding, and they did really well. But now they need to, the rubber needs to hit the road. They gotta execute.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. But the opportunity is right there. It's still the early days of RWAs for everybody, folks.
That's right.
That's what's so exciting, and that is why it's also acquisition season, because there's a lot of players making big vision plays, as well as we know there's a lot of TradFi activity looking at this. But in this case, I'm talking about none other than the Redstone acquisition of Credora. Credora, the risk assessment and ratings firm. Okay, this is focused typically on-chain credit as well as other DeFi applications. Okay, and Redstone, we know, is the official Oracle provider for Securities and many other RWAs that we actually use and track over at stm.co as well. But in this case, what does this mean, Kyle? They're bringing in this risk rating expertise. They're saying that they are now the first Oracle that unites prices, risk ratings, and collateral intelligence all under one roof. And I got to say, when it comes to the full picture of DeFi and RWAs taking over with yield and collateral, borrowing, lending, and all that good stuff, this is, I think, a very smart play. Love this team up, if you will, and good, smart move on Redstone, that clearly they're not just being a single source Oracle solution. They've got plans to become something much bigger, it looks like. Can't wait to see what that turns into, but a great move already here. Kyle, what do you think about this acquisition?
I think it makes a lot of sense. It's acquisitions generally, I think, are a good thing for the industry. It shows the health of the market, that these firms, A, have cash, and B, have valuable equity, but C, it obviously provides returns for early investors. So whoever is an investor of Credora, congratulations on having a liquidity event or certainly some sort of stock transfer or something like that. And I like the rating style of agencies. I think that that's an important part of this market, is research, is information, is transparency on these types of investment vehicles, especially when you're talking about whether it's private assets that don't have that much information publicly, where maybe there's a deal room and things like that, but you may or may not have access, especially on a secondary market style of transaction. But increasingly, with all of these looped tokens, we're talking about these private credit deals where you're taking a private credit instrument, you're selling that to someone, and then someone's taking that private credit instrument and then leveraging that as collateral, pulling out more capital, and then reinvesting in that similar asset or a different type of asset. When you start to have these multi-collateralized type vehicles, it will start to get a little bit too complex for the average person to really start to diligence. And even research teams, I think, are going to start being overwhelmed by the complexity of some of these deals, where the money's going, where it's pointing to, what assets are collateralized by other ones. And so understanding a lot of those risk metrics is going to be more and more difficult to do manually. So having firms that are doing some of that blockchain-based forensics from an accounting perspective, I think is going to be crucial. So I think this makes a lot of sense as an acquisition, especially for an Oracle company.
Data, trust, ratings, it's all connected. And that makes a lot of sense. And you know what? We're ending this segment, Kyle, on a pretty cool one. Take it for what you will, but our administrations here in the United States are following to the tune of the mandate that the president set out at the beginning of the year, which is to make America the home of blockchain innovation, the future of crypto markets. And that's definitely been the case, I think, right, Kyle? We've seen both the SEC and the CFTC active separately, making huge strides in advancing the space. Separately, they had sort of the project crypto at the SEC and the crypto sprint over at the CFTC. And now we have a joint initiative or a joint announcement saying that they are working together through cross-agency initiatives. Let's see, in furtherance of the SEC's Project Crypto and the CFTC's Crypto Sprint to coordinate efforts regarding the process for enabling the trading of certain spot crypto asset products. So one of the big things that I think that, U.S. citizens have been left out in the whole world of crypto. Again, we're starting to see that change. I think that was one of the original missions at the beginning of the year, is like, we need to make sure Americans have access to all of crypto again. And these are the first steps, because we were missing these regulators to actually make sure there's clarity, make sure there are rules, make sure that our markets can conform and also participate in what has been very active internationally already. So, Kyle, I just have to say, some people could kind of see this as business as usual, or they're doing what they're told. But I just love to see this stuff, man. It's been nice after basically a decade of no support that this is happening.
Yeah, well, I will note that this is a pretty marked shift from the previous. Again, I don't want to put blame on a particular administration, but let's just say 5 years ago, it had nothing to do necessarily with who was president at the time. But there seemed to be a bit of a turf war between the CFTC and the commodities side of these assets, as well as the SEC and the securities side of these assets. And it did not seem like they played very well together. It seemed like they were both trying to fight kind of over this asset class to have leverage and jurisdiction over. And it seemed like the only way that we were going to really be able to mediate this was to have Congress step in, which obviously in an ideal world, that would be a solution. I think that would give everybody clear peace of mind. But as we see in the U.S. political system, it doesn't seem like it's very easy to get bills passed and to get bipartisan support. And not only that, but it seems like every bill has 1,000 other things that it's also trying to do. And these bills just become these huge, amalgamations of a variety of different topics that become so complicated that it just is incredibly, incredibly slow. And so this is by far the most favorable solution, which is, hey, look, it's probably unlikely that Congress is going to get anything out anytime soon. So the next best option is that the SEC and the CFTC just have to figure out how they're going to do this and how they're going to approach this together collectively for the sake of the U.S. economy. And so I'm happy to see these first steps. It's just, like anything, if it's easy to do it, it's also easy to undo it. So let's hope that they can work towards something that results in something actually codified into federal law. That would be the end goal here.
As you said, this is the next best thing, and it absolutely can be turned back if we don't see some action from Congress. So all eyes are still, hopefully, maybe if we're lucky, some action in September around that Clarity Act and a few others. But you're right. But what I am also excited about is we got several more years with this action happening. So I got to say, I'm pretty bullish hearing things like this. And what I'm even more bullish about is a huge announcement from the RWA Foundation we're going to get into, and the fact that we've got so many more RWA updates to cover on this episode alone. So let's just move it right along, shall we, Kyle?
Let's do it.
Well, we have another major announcement. If you've been following along with the RWA Foundation, our goal is to create a voice for the crypto community, for RWAs in the intersection with DeFi. We've been gathering members. We announced many new members just a few weeks ago. We're now over 40 strong of some of the leading chains, marketplaces, token issuers, and even engines and infrastructure. And now we have our first ever initiative we're bringing to market to let anyone around the world participate in both supporting RWAs through crypto. So we have officially announced the RWA pod. You can learn more about this on X at our account at RWA Foundation _ or on our Medium blog. But basically, the concept is simple. You'll be able to deposit USDC on Base, Ethereum, Arbitrum, or Sonic, and earn yield that gives you both pre-TGE tokens to Wally, and 9 other RWA project tokens. So this will be across infrastructure, across different asset classes. You tell us what you'd like to see in the pod. We're going to make sure it's happening. A huge, huge announcement coming up on the 15th as we open it up, but we'll be revealing who's involved and new ambassadors joining the RWA Foundation, all coming up in just the next week or two here. Oh, it's hard to contain such excitement. It's coming to you soon. So with that, appreciate everyone who's already in the herd, but tap in if you aren't, and let's get back to the show. Kyle, we have a heck of a couple of months coming up before the end of the year. I know you're heading over to Asia for a tour, really. That's going to put you busy. But we know there's a lot of activity happening here. And as I mentioned before, I will be at RWA Summit in New York in just a few weeks as well. There's also Meridian by Stellar that's organizing a bunch of folks over in Brazil around policy and regulation. So many good things. But I do want to point out, if you're going to be in New York, hit me up. There's also an event called Capital Markets and Cocktails, just focused on institutions and RWAs. It's going to be in New York City the day before on 9/15, that Monday before RWA Summit. So if you're already in town or you're attending, definitely check this out if this is up your alley, or hit me up in a DM and we'll make sure you get approved for that event. But Kyle, why don't we jump right into all the new STO updates and offerings, or RWA updates?
Yeah, let's do it.
Big news, as we saw with global markets from Ondo launching as well, but Backed Finance has been capturing all the names, doing a lot of expansion on a lot of different crypto exchanges, from Kraken to Gemini and many others. And now they've expanded xStocks to Ethereum. They were originally on Solana, and now they've expanded to Ethereum with 60 of their stocks, including NVIDIA and Tesla. So, the race is on. There's a lot of different structures out there. There's a lot of different licenses and access and capabilities and assets available on these different platforms and on different venues. It's really exciting to see this space grow. Moving on, we saw Raze announce that they are doing $100 million in a tokenized private credit vault, which is exciting to see further more private credit action. But Raze, as we've been covering, is now mobilizing their tokenization engine and clearly onboarding some great projects. I love the private credit vault game, if you will, RWA vaults. DEUSS, DEUSS, is launching a platform in Europe for the EBSI blockchain to target small business digital bonds. And digital bonds have been a common use case. Tokenized bonds are very popular across Europe, so this doesn't surprise me one bit. Then over in Hong Kong, Shenzhen Futian Investment Holdings has issued their first offshore yuan-denominated bond via GF Securities, one of the leading investment banks over there in Hong Kong, raised about $70 million for this bond. So that's no small offering. Again, bonds can scale quickly. We track billions of them already at stm.co. Speaking of Korea, where I believe, Kyle, you might be headed over there, Seoul City is tokenizing underutilized real estate assets, starting with actually a closed-off police station. Very interesting use case of tokenization throughout this episode. And Japan, staying in the Far East, the Japan Post Bank is actually tokenizing, looking at tokenizing deposits for next year. And they're working with DeCurret, DCP. But tokenized deposits is something we've been talking about now. Forget stable coins. Banks are going to be issuing tokenized deposits. And Thailand, they're looking to issue a bond as well, about 155K worth, so not as big, but another bond out into the market that's on-chain. And the last RWA offering update is Aurora Optoelectronics, which is issuing a little over $1 million in AI server back tokens, a use case we've been seeing grow and grow, not surprisingly, given demand for AI servers, for all the usage behind the servers that people are using AI for. Right? It's driving a lot of demand. So Kyle, any of these offerings stick out to you that you want to talk about?
Well, Herwig, I don't want to beat a dead horse, if you will, but I just keep thinking about these tokenized stock announcements and thinking like, man, a lot of the early ATS guys must be frustrated that you know, they were just unable to bring a lot of solid, attractive listings to the marketplaces. And Bakkt doing a great job bringing 60 tokenized stocks. I mean, I remember we had months and years of begging these platforms to just bring more assets to market, right? A lot of the early struggle in the industry was just the inability to bring anything to market to trade, let alone 60 plus assets that are high quality stock tokens. So shout out to them. The one thing is I just want to note is I haven't done research on Bakkt asset structures in particular, but as a reminder, as always, I think it's important to continue to highlight to people, not all tokenized stocks are created equal. So just make sure that whichever platform you're on, you understand what you're buying. Because it doesn't mean that if it is a tokenized stock or if it's a mirrored share or whatever, like that's fine. There's an opportunity to invest in any of those things and use any of those things for a variety of reasons. Just understand the risks that you're taking, and when you should be wary of those things before you really do any serious volume there. Raze, finally, psyched for those guys. I actually was able to speak a little bit about this deal with them, and I've seen what they've done with their private credit deal previously in the ferro titanium space. I was actually an investor in that, and this is a new project that they're bringing to market. A really good issuer, cool guy. So I know how hard they've been working, and how it's cool to see them bringing successful deals to market in the private credit space, because everybody's talking about it, but I still feel like there's not that many assets in the private credit space, despite the fact that everybody's interested in this type of deal. So Raze is doing some good stuff. I think it's a name to watch.
No, I'm excited for that too. And you're spot on. Always do your own research, folks. Know exactly what you're buying, the ecosystem, the setup, how it's all connected. This is a whole new world of investing. And there are more announcements, Kyle. We saw that Zerohash, which is a big stablecoin infrastructure provider. They are now getting into the custody game with Zerohash Trust Company as a qualified custodian. Utila has raised $22 million, led by Red Dot Capital for their stablecoin infrastructure, focusing on now expanding into emerging markets. RWA Inc. and EightLends, they've partnered up for on-chain lending, which is very exciting because, of course, tokenized lending is, again, I think something that's going to be huge. So the more players that actually start to provide services around this, underwriting RWAs, the more we can start to grow this. We already saw on the institutional side with Aave Horizon that there's demand for this stuff for sure. And Finloop, they're joining the tokenized stock game out of Hong Kong, trying to be that technical solution over there. Institutionally in Europe, the Boerse Stuttgart launched their Securities settlement platform, which is supposed to cover across Europe here. StratX launching a routing protocol, supposedly with SEC, OFAC, and Treasury policies embedded for compliance. I'm not sure exactly what that means, other than they probably have a lot of frameworks built in for their routing protocol by StratX. Aria, which is focusing on IP tokenization, has raised $15 million by Polychain and co-led by Neoclassic Capital, and Story Protocol Foundation also a participant in this. This goes to show you some heavy hitters behind Aria here. Gonna go check that one out. And finally, Power Metal Resources proposes a $3 million investment into mine starters in order to start exploring tokenized global mineral exploration and the related development projects, which is pretty exciting. A whole nother asset class that, again, most people probably would have never get exposure to these types of opportunities. So Kyle, a lot of updates there. Again, anything that you really want to provide some insight, color on?
Well, Herwig, you know that I am a commodities guy. And so my mind immediately goes to Power Metal Resources and their work with mine starters here. I have continued to spend so much time in this sector. I still am. In a majority of my time is spent in the commodity space. And as we've continued to work with emerging markets, specifically small upstart nations, right? And I don't mean upstart necessarily in terms of how new they are necessarily, but these are nations that know that they have valuable resources, whether that's petroleum-based products, whether that's precious metals, whatever. But it's really hard to get financing for a variety of reasons. Maybe, a big case is they may not even have the banking infrastructure to support financing of a lot of the different assets that they have, let alone other complications around banking and compliance and things like that. So I do think tokenization presents an awesome opportunity here, even if it's just purely for the movement of capital, the storing of capital, and de-risking some of those components. I think is really huge. So this one caught my eye for those reasons. I think that's great. Happy to see RWA Inc. doing stuff. I've met their team in different places and like what they're doing, and some really good announcements here. I don't want to just reread everything that you just said, but I think all of these were fantastic, and StratX doing some great stuff in the compliance space. Not enough people.
Well, there's a few more to cover there, Kyle, including, I think, a pretty cool one, State Street, who's starting to get more and more active. At least we still have yet to see an actual kind of product offering as far as I know, but they're making investments and partnerships, and now another investment into none other than Apex Fintech Solutions, which is the rebranded Tokenize. After Apex had taken the majority control. So a pretty big institutional move here, knowing that they now have a tokenization engine and likely potentially some kind of custody partnership there with State Street. Talk about a win-win there. And then also some regulatory updates. The European Central Bank president is urging stablecoin legislation to be passed by the European Union. And of course, the European Commission itself is releasing proposals on a saving and investment union by December that's tied to RWA tokenization. So again, these are scalable infrastructure models that are being used, whether it's to save Gaza or whether it's a proposal on savings and an investment union. And finally, we have the U.S. Federal Reserve hosting a payments innovation conference. How cool is that? Coming up October 21st. It's, of course, all about stable coins and tokenization. Really cool, innovative stuff. Again, I just can't believe I'm saying these things. Would have never.
October 21st, my birthday, right? Too. So it's just a good day.
That's a good day.
To be doing it. So maybe I can find my way into that, to those meetings, just on the basis of it being my special day. You don't get it, Jay Powell. Like I need to be there. It's my birthday, can't turn down the birthday boy.
I'm looking forward to your keynote. Well, with
These
that,
are all great too. We're like exciting. Let's close out the show, shall we?
Yeah, if you've got no other comments on that, then let's do it. You know what we've got to do next?
The companies of the week. Ah, 299 episodes, 598 winners. Maybe a few less. We've missed we've had a couple company of the year choices. We've had one or two episodes where we missed one or something like that. So let's call it 575 winners, Herwig, of this illustrious award, which is so exciting, and of course gets you nominated for the Companies of the Year award, a title that not many have held and not many more will. And so it's an honor to be here every week in the position as voted by the committee to select our company of the week this week for my half of the award winning. And Herwig, of course, you have the other nomination here for this amazing, incredible award and achievement. So I'd love for you to regale us with your tales of your choices of who is your winner for this week, episode 299 of the Security Token Show.
Yeah, this isn't influenced by any sponsor or any kind of metric or a rule or framework. This is just purely who, you or I, we decide. It's just love of the game, who we thought, you know what? I want to put the spotlight on this company because I thought that was the biggest move. And gosh, it might just make them company of the year for what they did. But in this case, I'm going to be talking about none other than Galaxy, Kyle. I was just so excited to see such a major crypto company. Again, not the first, but truly a major company that's going to get a lot of recognition from this. In my opinion, they sort of set off the firing gun for the race to start natively tokenizing your company if you're a crypto company. That's right, Kyle. I'm calling out everybody else right now, except for Galaxy, because you're my company of the week. But if you're Coinbase, if you're Gemini, if you're Kraken, if you're anybody else, you need to figure out how to get your shares public to the people. I don't care if you're not a public company yet, go and direct register and do it through tokenization. This is a huge sign, Kyle. Galaxy, and hopefully through opening bell with Superstate, they're going to enable a whole new, RWA enabled stock market. And Galaxy seems to be the first public company to leverage that. So again, for all of those reasons above, and a big win for Solana, which is the native chain of choice here. Galaxy, you're my company of the week.
Wow, great winner, awesome company. Just as we maybe mentioned before, the other upside here is that Galaxy is a huge market maker and liquidity provider in the traditional crypto side. And so the hope is that they're an investor in Superstate. They've now tokenized their shares. Obviously, it's a little bit hairier in terms of how to provide liquidity into regulated assets as opposed to non-regulated assets, but that doesn't feel like it's something that Galaxy wouldn't be able to solve in one way or another, whether that's directly or through a subsidiary with which they can provide a credit revolver or something. I'm sure there's a way to solve that, but this move signals to me a broader switch into this industry of potentially market making for a lot of the tokenized stocks that exist on the market and a variety of these different factors, which is going to be really, really important for the health of this space.
Now, Kyle, again, I completely agree. But you know what? I'm not the only one. And looks like for the last nomination of the 200s of the Security Token Show episodes, since this is 299, right? Kyle, who's it going to be?
Well, my company of the week is a repeat winner here, Ondo. They brought 100 plus tokenized stocks to the market. And I have the list here. I just wanted to, as a fun throwback, because I used to do that market trading segment in Herwig where we would cover some interesting stats. If anybody was interested, of the 104 tokenized stocks that are currently available on the Ondo Global Markets platform, the number one trading volume or by volume asset is the S&P 500 tokenized index, which makes a ton of sense because that's one of probably the most liquid stock on the stock market as well. But it makes a lot of sense to keep that basket passive exposure. And so I'm going to read the next two or three. The next one is another S&P 500 index product. Then we have the 20 plus year treasury bond tokenized ETF. QQQ by Invesco is number 4, which is kind of an ETF mutual fund, or it's an ETF, investing in a bunch of innovation. And then the final one is another ETF. In fact, ETFs represent the top 11 stocks here. And number 12 is Walmart, actually. So Walmart being the most traded tokenized stock on Ondo to date, with $428,000 in volume in the last, 24 hours. Number 1 being the S&P 500 from Spider, SPDR, which is SPY is the ticker, has 1.9 million. And so they have 4 tokenized stocks. The top 4 stocks are over $1 million in volume each. And so some interesting stuff here. A lot of just normal companies on top of tech. They've got McDonald's, they've got, PepsiCo, they've got Chevron. So there's many normal stocks as well as just the technology ones, with most of them with some nominal amount of trading volume. There's only, call it 10 or so that have not really traded yet. But many of them are in the tens of or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So Ondo doing some good stuff there for bringing all those products to market and driving liquidity, probably close to, I would guess, $15 million in trading volume today alone. That puts them kind of head and shoulders above most of the traditional players in the market, and they're using that ATS that got passed around from exchange to exchange. So cool to see that finally actually ended up being useful for something. So shout out to Ondo.
Yeah, I definitely hope it's already powering all this. It's pretty exciting, but a lot of takeaways there, right? Like the ETFs, that's the sign that this is a great use case of tokenization. It's the future of ETFs. It's right there in the pudding. Also, is all international investors, right? So the fact that Walmart was actually the top choice is very interesting as a international brand that is clearly desired as a portfolio holding, apparently, for at least the folks that are trading.
Represents the American consumer.
Yeah, look at that. They want access to that. But also, as we noted earlier too, like their trading volume is great. They executed with a huge library, inventory of options. A lot of them have all the volume that proved them, I think, to be already in second place in volume in the war of volume across these stock solutions, token solutions. But man, Kyle, what a great choice. So proud and happy for that Ondo team for doing such a great job. And I know it's just the beginning now that they're actually live, and we're only going to build on this. And if you start to kind of maybe factor in some growth rate to this, those numbers are pretty strong. We might be looking at a very healthy on-chain Ondo global market in terms of volume by the end of the year in this case. Very, very exciting stuff. Great choice.
Well, that's about it for the show tonight, Herwig.
That sure is, Kyle. Any final concluding thoughts, maybe updates from Global Settlement?
Well, it looks like we've been approved for our first CBDC sandbox, which is pretty exciting. So unfortunately, I can't share which country that is, but we are moving in that direction, which has been an interesting thing to see. From my perspective, a lot of it actually comes from, as we said, from a commodities perspective. There's opportunities to fundraise for a lot of these commodities projects, but some of the infrastructure surrounding these projects are not as developed as you might need for this type of investment and for the size of the opportunity. So rebuilding a lot of that infrastructure is paramount to having a successful and productive economy in an emerging market. And so we found ourselves diving down that rabbit hole and doing everything we can to build sustainable economics for countries all around the world.
That's a huge congrats, man. That's awesome. Congrats to you.
Thanks.
And Ryan and the whole Global Settlement team. And I can't wait to hear the announcement and see which country that is. And I'm sure the first of many. And with that, everybody, make sure you go check out that RWA pod announcement. It is the future of finance that you get to stake using your idle crypto. What are you waiting for? It's going to be awesome. And with that, make sure you hit us up if you want to, meet us in person, either in New York or Kyle across Asia the next, couple of weeks or over a month. I know you always are out there for a little while. So, you just go follow him. Go follow both of us if you aren't already on X, and you could definitely tap into our schedules. But with that, of course, we'll be back again with episode 300 next week for you. And with that, have a great weekend and happy tokenizing.